Feeling lost sucks. Not only do I know it from my own personal experience, but after listening and coaching women all month long about I feel lost, the phrase has come up even at a Halloween party Chris and I went to. A man introduced himself and I asked him to describe himself in 3 words, and the first word he chose was lost. That's when we knew, we looked at each other and were like, we're going to do an episode on this. So if you've been feeling lost, this episode is for you. Hey, we're Britt and Chris Carmichael, and you're listening to the Elevated Life Podcast. Throughout the 13 years we've been together, we've never ceased in our endless quest to better ourselves.
We've studied top experts, philosophers, and gurus. After years of personal self-experimentation, we found the tools for shifting your beliefs, moving through fears, and developing a positive mindset.
If you're ready for a breakthrough, then you're in the right place, because we're here to empower you to take control of your life with simple mindset shifts that create radical transformation.
We'll be diving into topics like personal growth, health, philosophy, spirituality, relationships, success, and mindfulness.
So create some space for yourself and get comfy. It's time to become the badass you were born to be. Okay, Alice in Wonderland, I feel like we're at that turning point in the chapter where we look at the Cheshire Cat and we say, "Which way do I go?" And he replies, "Well, which way are you going?" She says, "I don't know." And what does he say?
It doesn't matter.
Then it doesn't matter. And that's the thing. If you feel lost, it's most likely because you haven't decided your direction.
You know what it really is too? And I think this is why a lot of times relationships will fail, why a lot of times we get stuck or unmotivated in life and we get this lost feeling. It's because we watch too many movies. We see too many TV shows, and what happens in movie stories is that the person's life is a build-up, they go all these setbacks, and they go through this hero's journey, and then at some point it peaks, they have their big epiphany moment, and then boom, they're exactly where they want to be. The movie's over, we all clap because it's a great ending, and life's not like that. Life is not like that at all. That's a great story. That's a great storyline. That's something to pay attention to. That's something to get excited about with your friends. But it's not how life actually works. The idea that you have somewhere to get to in life is made up. There's nowhere to go. It's right here. And so the big problem that people are having is that they haven't decided which direction to go. They are Alice looking down the roads being like, well, I'm not sure which one to take. And the weird reality is that it doesn't even really matter.
No, because every road leads to Rome, and that Rome is you. And it's putting the power back into your hands. When people say they feel lost to me, especially on these coaching calls all month, I mean, it has been the most insane theme, like feeling lost and needing consistency. So maybe we'll do an episode on that, because those are the 2 topics of conversation that have been coming in hot this Scorpio season. So for me, when I think about my clients feeling lost, what I can see from the outside that is hard for them to see in their own perspective is that they haven't made that decision on how they want to feel or what they want to experience. And the truth is that no answer is the wrong answer. And the reason why they're not making the choice is because their perfectionism and fear of failure has clouded their perspective and realization that there's nothing wrong with choosing any direction. This is the thing. Like, we've been taught we need to go to college or have a family or get a job or this certain line, like Chris talks about from the movies and going to school, our parents, what other people's expectations are of us. But the problem is we're not even living up to our own expectations because we're afraid of other people's judgment, not even our own sometimes.
This is brutal.
It's bad. It's a really bad cycle we get ourselves into.
And so what I really like to do when I start feeling this way, or when I have a client that starts to feel this way, the first thing we always do is we get back to basics. It's always starting with the get back to basics, because no matter what path you choose in life, the commonality of all of them is that you're there. And so if your body doesn't feel good, if you're not in the right mental space, if you're talking bad about yourself, if you're not getting the right kind of sleep, if you haven't danced, if you haven't played in a while, all that's going to dig into the fact that you feel lost. So that when you do show up, like maybe you do pick the right road and it's the perfect road, and it's, if you were to write the story, this is the one you'd be on. But if you show up as half of yourself, if you're drained, if you're not excited about life, so you have this anti-life position, then you're not going to be enthusiastic. And
Yeah,
so
you burn out on that pretty yellow road.
when you're not enthusiastic, the people around you aren't either, because all of our energy kind of collects together. So if you got several friends together and one person comes in and they're mad about life and everything is just beating them down and all that, it just is drain, and everybody drains down with it. It's hard to pull somebody up when they're dragging you down.
That's exactly why Jim Rohn is famously known for saying, you are the makeup of the 5 closest people you keep. This is so important because it's not just about like, oh, it's Sally and Jesse. It's their mindset, their emotional tone, their attitude, their self-worth. It is everything that gets wrapped up into what energy they bring to the table and what influences you, especially if you're an empath.
So too, if you end up being that person where you feel lost and you're going into your friend group and you know, like, hey, I'm gonna drag these people down a little bit, because it does happen from time to time.
Do you think people have that level of awareness?
I hope so. And this is not to abandon all your friends that are going through things. That's not what we're talking about here. That's not what we're talking about at all. But when it's a consistency thing, when they're choosing to do that road over and over again, even though they know it leads to a bad space, even though they continue to pick the exact same partner that they know will cheat on them, or they know won't treat them right, or they know will be emotionally or abusive. It's just like they keep picking it. It's like they have this hard lesson to learn and you can't learn it for them, and it's hard to even tell them about it. So if you know that you're that person walking into the group, like if I'm that person walking in, the difference that I want to do is I'm not going to go in there and just share all my problems and talk about how bad life is. What I'm going to go in there and do is I'm going to ask them, hey, what's been inspiring you lately? What have you been doing that's been a lot of fun? Rather than saying, hey, I'm in a funk and this sucks and all that, I'm going to ask them, what's working for you right now? What's lighting you up in your life?
That is absolutely what happened today on my coaching call with my client who is feeling lost right now. She asked me, she goes, I've got 2 questions for you. And the first one is, what do you do in your morning routine? Like, how do you manage your day? Like, I want to know what you do. And what I told her is the missing piece in her life is that I prioritize filling my cup first before I go out and serve, because I cannot serve from an empty cup. I've done it before and it leads to disaster for everyone involved.
Everyone.
Especially Chris. Love you. So here's the deal. You've got to prioritize doing the thing that you need. And so I asked her this very simple question. What do you need? She's like, oh gosh, I never asked myself that. Like, are you fucking kidding me? This is a daily question you should be asking yourself. Not should be, fucking must.
So what do you need right now? What is it that's keeping you stuck? There's always something. There's always something that you're lagging behind on. We all do it. We all have a weak spot, no matter how strong you get or how great you get it, at your own personal just understanding and knowing.
What do you suck at? What do you struggle with?
I struggle with, I don't know. I have to think about that.
Okay, I want to know. I'm fucking curious.
I'll come up with it.
Okay.
I think, and it's a double-edged sword. It's 2 ways, because it's a really big positive and it's a really big struggle, and that is that I don't take life that seriously. One of my biggest struggles is that I don't take it serious. To me, in a lot of ways, not that life's a joke, not that it doesn't have any kind of meaning and that there's not some great profound things to be understood and explored here. It's just that I don't like to get in my own way. I don't like to always apply meaning to every single thing that's going on. And sometimes it makes me not be able to relate to other people because they get so serious in their head. It reminds me of the time that my mom came and visited us and we went out to the pond. We used to have this pond right where we lived, and I would walk it, and it got to be such a big deal for me. And I'd go down there and take books and sit by the pond because no one went down there. And so it was basically just me out there by myself, with my thoughts, with ducks, just hanging out. And so my mom, who lived down the street for a while, she would end up driving out there just to see if I was there. And most of the times I was. So she comes down one day and you can tell, she was that person who was lost. She was in a moment in her life where she was going to make a big transition. She was trying to decide if she was going to leave the job and the profession that she had been in for forever. And it had been wearing on her. She had discounted her own self-care. She was going home frustrated every single night. She wasn't sleeping that well. She wasn't having fun with friends. She was basically trying to go home and rest as much as possible because the day beat her up so bad. Just the amount of activity that was going on, just her interacting with other people. And she starts crying. And she's crying hard, and we're sitting there. The water fountain's going. There are ducks flying in. There's egrets and herons. Turtles are out there sunbathing. And she's sitting next to me on a bench crying. And most people in that moment would probably console the person. It's my mom. I care about her so much. And so and instead of being able to console her, I couldn't stop laughing. I laughed so hard I started crying. And not because I was sad, but because I thought that everything she was feeling in that moment was ridiculous. I thought that here is a woman who is so powerful, who can do so many great things, who is so just walking around with blinders on, blind to her own excellence. And the fact that she's letting anything or anyone stand in her way is totally ludicrous. And so it made me laugh. And then eventually it made her laugh too. She's like, why are you laughing? But because laughing is contagious, she got on that trip too. And guess what? She started to make changes. So like I said, it's a good thing that I have that. And it's also sometimes a hindrance, because there's going to be that moment where the person looks at you like, dude, why are you laughing at me? Like I'm exposing my soul to you right here. I'm saying some things that, like, I wouldn't tell anybody. I'm actually giving you the truth and you're doing nothing but laughing. But sometimes that's what we have to do. My goal whenever I'm with a client is to make them laugh at themselves. The moment that you can start laughing at yourself and just notice how ridiculous you've been, notice that your thoughts have been ridiculous, notice that the self-talk's been crazy, notice that the way you've been interacting with people is crazy. Like once you can get into that and you're like, oh, what have I been doing? And you laugh at yourself and you find that you're a little bit silly and that life's a little bit silly, you come out of it. You start to stop being in that way. And so that all the people around you, again, start giving you the things that you need. You're like, oh, well, no one's here for me then. And no one's doing this for here. And I'm not getting lucky. It's because you're stuck in a particular thought loop. And that thought loop is ruining everything.
Oh, straight up. And so if you're feeling lost, then you just need to lighten up. You need to lighten up the thought process that you're having, the pressure that you're putting on yourself, the mental stories that you're telling yourself, the standard of perfection to the body. I mean, literally, this is word for word conversation from my experience today with my client. I asked her, so what is so overwhelming? You feel so anxious and like, what's going on? And she's like, everything, just everything. I was like, wow, these trees are really stressing you out, huh? She's like, well, not that. I'm like, so not everything? So her, in fact, telling herself that everything was stressful put her body in this automatic fight or flight stress response mode. And when we started to break it down, okay, so what's the real deal? What was interesting, all of that stress and all this anxiety that's been building and building and building in all these different stories and projections of like, well, I think it's this, or I'm blaming this thing outside myself. What it all boiled down to today, when she finally started laughing at herself, was fear of judgment of her parents looking at a picture, a family photo that would get put on their wall, that her family might think that she's overweight or not pretty. And all of that fear boiled down to the action of, I just need to get back on my bike 15 minutes a day.
And see, it's those simple concepts, but you cannot see them while you're angry. When you're angry, the only thing you can do is either judge, blame, criticize. Anger a lot of times deflects the responsibility away from you. And it's justified a lot. Sometimes it's right to be angry because we get into a space where, things aren't right. But when it comes to modifying your own life and figuring out what it is that you really need, anger can't be a part of it. That's why laughter is such a good thing. That's why I love to play or dance, or just it puts me in the right space. I do like dancing, I do like playing, but that's not necessarily why I use them. I like it because of the mental reprieve that it gives me away from anger, away from envy, away from jealousy, away from being mad at the world, and realizing that I'm here to learn lessons, that I'm here to figure it out for myself, and that I don't have to be lost because I'm not going anywhere. I am just with me this whole time, and whatever happens, I am okay with that. And when you get to that space, it's a little bit different of kind of stuff that starts to open up because you're not clutching at the world so hard. I mean, the world is like sand in your hands, and if you grip it too hard, it just falls right out. But if you just kind of lightly cup your hand, it'll stay there, and you can manipulate it all you want. But if you're grabbing tightly, you'll never grasp it.
This is so beautiful and such a great reminder for anyone who is lost. How you can reclaim your power is just decide. Decide what you want to feel, where you want to go, how you want to experience things. There are going to be some things that you can't change. So that simple, like, just decide. Well, I can't decide to bring my dad back from the dead, okay? Like, there are some things I do understand. That's going to take a perspective shift. It's going to be the remembrance and the reminder to you that you have the power to choose. You have the power to choose love and peace and calm and ease, even amidst chaos and uncertainty. You always have the choice. And I think when people get lost, they forget that power.
The other thing that people forget a lot of times is what the right path to clarity is. Clarity is typically going to be coming in two different ways. And the way that I like to do it is two ways. So one is to get silent with yourself. So this is a meditative practice. Get silent. That's one of the reasons why I went and got by the pond. That's why I would sit there all the time, is because in that silence, I found so many answers. I'm also always doing it in the bath or in the shower. Always get the best answers, intuitive insights in the bath, in water. Anytime I'm near water, miracles happen for me. I mean, just things where I couldn't connect the dots. I get by the water and suddenly not only the dots connected, but it makes a big picture for me. And I'm like, oh my gosh, it was there all the time. How could I be so ridiculous? So one is getting silent. That means not thinking so much. Being lost comes from the way that you're thinking and the way that you're perceiving the future. And so to get with our thoughts and let them be quiet for a moment, let the mind just settle down and relax. Like Alan Watts always says, if you have water and it's muddy, you don't want to do anything to it to make it not muddy. You just sit there for a while and the water starts to clear away. Same with our mind. The other thing you can do, since we're talking about looking out into the future, is to start using some simple visualization techniques. Nothing complicated. None of this stuff is hard. So you just want to visualize out into the future. And maybe you don't know what that thing is. Good, make it up. This is time to change your story around. You're not certain about something. You're confused a little bit. Fine. Make up 4 or 5 scenarios. That's fine. Figure out which one did you actually like. Which one did you see yourself in and going, that would be cool if that was my life. That would be cool if I did those things, or if I met those people, if I traveled to these spots and learned about this. That would be really fun for me. I could see myself enjoying that. The second that you're enjoying things again, you're not lost anymore. So in that enjoyment and in that, you're bringing in, because you start to get more immersed with love. When you enjoy something, a lot of times you can't be in the future. You can only be lost if you're thinking about the future. So if you have this joy, it's because it's right here, right now, and that's the only thing that you're concentrating on. That means the mind's not coming up with new stuff. It's not telling you about someone that you're upset about with earlier in the day. It's not telling you about your family's portraits that, they may judge, and, who cares? They're not sleeping with you anyway. And so it's just,
I hope not.
Yeah. Whoa. And so you want to get into a space where you're thinking about and projecting yourself out into the future. It doesn't have to be far. It can be a month from now. Sitting down quiet, and then you're projecting out and saying, okay, what do I want to be doing? What would be cool to do? Would that feel good for me? Do I want to be around some new people? How would I train? Where those people hang out at? Are they at sporting games? Are they at networking events? Are they at, concerts? Where are these people and how would I find them? And so once you start visualizing that, your mind has something new to grab onto in the future. And if that new future excites you more than the present of being lost, your brain will grab the future. And so you have to tell it what you want, and you do that with images. So the visualization is so powerful, even if you're not great at visualization. I personally am not great at it. I don't see a lot of stuff. Whenever I close my eyes, it's not like I have these amazing visions. Some people are like that. BRIT's like that. But that's a skill that she developed. You don't need it. You don't need to see everything perfectly clear. Whenever I close my eyes, I get a feeling when I think about certain things. And so whenever I think about the future, or I think about working with certain clients, which is something I do all the time, when I have a potential client come up and I think about working with them, I close my eyes and I imagine us working together. And if I like that, I typically accept the client. If I don't like that, we're not going to work together, because I can't picture us having a good time and me helping you with whatever it is that I'm helping you with. And so it's so important to go out to the future just for a moment. It's not where we want to live all the time. It's just to give us a general direction so that we'll know, oh yeah, that's it for me. That would be cool. And sometimes whatever you've been wishing for is not actually what you want. So you get there and you say, well, hell, this is not nearly as good as what I thought it was going to be. And so guess what you do? You get back, sit by the pond, you get quiet with yourself, let the mind settle for a little bit, see if an answer pops up. If it doesn't, good. Visualize out into the future. Well, what will I do differently now? And what did I learn along the way? Did I learn that I need to set better boundaries? I learned I need to take care of myself a little better. Did I know that my physical body's got some problems I need to work on? I know that my mental stuff is not exactly where it needs to be to attract what I need in my life. Good, now you got stuff to work on. So it's all about, what am I going to work on now? Lost and confused means you're just kind of sitting there in the mud puddle that you've dug and just not going anywhere. And so allow yourself to take different routes, take different paths. If Alice would have sat there and said, well, hey, let's do this, Kat.
I'm going to Canada.
Let's sit down here and think about it for a moment. Let's just picture what some of the paths may be, and let's picture what we may do on some of those paths, and if we like it. And even better, the cheap method is to find someone who's gone down that path and ask them, hey, how was that for you? Maybe ask a few people, because not everybody gets it right. So maybe ask a few. Say, hey, do you like doing this all the time? Is this for you? Does it suck? Like what? Well, I remember when we first talked about getting married, I went to my married friends and asked them like, hey, what do you think about being married? Does it suck? Are there some advantages? Is there things that I'm not paying attention to? Are there some perks that I don't know about since I haven't done it before? I mean, all those things in life, we tend to make decisions without all the kind of information. In a few short, simple conversations with people who care about you or who you meet, they want to have these conversations. People want to tell you about their lives. People want you to be interested in them. They will give you the answers that you're seeking if you'll just ask.
Honestly, when we were outside together, my client and I, we were in a park. I needed to take her to nature to release. And we were sitting alone, sharing, going through, why do you feel lost? What are the stories you're creating? You know, like, where do you want to go? How do you want to feel? This woman walked up and she was like, I'm sorry, I overheard you guys talking. Are you like a motivational like coach or something? Like I am. And she's like, I feel so lost right now. I'm going through some really hard things. So first and foremost, I share this because you're not alone. There are people out there that, one, feel the same way you feel, and two, want to help you. There are people that want to help you and share their insight and say, hey, I've been there. I've gone through this struggle. Let me make it easier for you. And after today's session with my client, what we really came down to is, of course, 15 minutes moving your body because we got the physical, but the spiritual side of that was, remember that you're doing your purpose and you're living your best life when you choose love and peace over chaos and all the other bullshit. Because it takes spiritual maturity to rise above the chaos that is happening and still choose to offer love and peace to every situation. Now, I'm not saying it happens all the time and that we're perfect at it, but the more you give yourself grace to choose love and to remember that you have the power of choice, that even in the hard stuff, you can choose to be calm, you can choose to offer love, that's where your real power lies. And that's what living your purpose is. It's what makes a difference. It's what's raising the vibration of the planet. It's what is inspiring other people to do that for themselves. So let me remind you that your power is in choosing love.
And there's a lot that people don't understand about the impact that they have on other people's lives. And I think that's another part, a big part about being lost is like not feeling like you do have a purpose, not feeling like you do make a difference to other people or to yourself, and that you're just kind of wandering, which again, it's fine to do. There's nothing wrong with wandering, but you are impacting people all the time. Anytime someone comes into contact with your energy, I know we're always so focused on what people say verbally or how people look, but that's such a small fraction of how we actually see each other. It's such a small part of what we are as beings.
Well, if words are only 7% of communication, then energy matters.
Yeah, and we call it body language a lot of times, but that's what we're saying. The energy of it. How does a person stand? How do they? You can look at a person and tell whether they're confident or not. You can watch the way that they breathe. You can see what their shoulders are doing. We're always telegraphing what it is, that how we feel. And a lot of times that's what people are looking at. That's what people are noticing. And that's what people are unconsciously basing their decisions on as to whether or not they want to develop a more or bigger relationship with us. There's a reason why empaths, for example, attract so many narcissists. It's because of the body language. It's because of the tonality. And so when you start to change your makeup of your energy, we're always talking about how frequencies attract certain frequencies or vibrations attract certain vibrations. And to a lot of people, it's like, what does that even mean? It means, how do you feel about yourself? What is the feeling inside? When we put on the brain scans, it's a little electricity that's moving around. And so when you feel a certain way, when you feel fear, it lights up a certain part of your brain. When you feel love, it lights up a certain part. And so all of that.
When you feel pleasure, it lights up a certain part.
Bing, 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 bing. And so you want to be exuding that as you walk in. That is how you make a difference with people. That is how you live your purpose, is that when people see you walking out in the hallway, or when people see you in a grocery store, when people meet you for the first time, they should feel overwhelmed with how amazing your energy is, what it's like just to be around you. When people describe you, don't you want to be the person when people say, damn, man, I just love being in their presence? You see how that didn't take extra stuff? You didn't have to look a certain way.
You don't have to do anything.
You don't need 10-minute abs. You don't all that.
But I want them.
And that's a bonus. Layer that on as a bonus. If you have a lot of physical beauty, that's a bonus. Love beautiful people. Love wealthy people. Love smart people. Love people who are really great at athletics. I love anytime someone has developed or cultivated a skill, even if maybe it was something that they were given at birth. It's just part of their makeup. Fantastic for them. I cheer them on. I love that too. But more than any of that, I always love being around a person's energy.
It's like the quote, people will forget what you said and what you did, but they'll never forget how you made them feel.
So how can you make a person feel good? How can you make it feel like there's a lot of hope in their life? How can you instill that hope without saying a word? Don't always have to use your words. Just see if you can use the present. See if you can think it. See if you can make the mental image in your brain big enough to overpower the mental image that they're making. Not aggressively, but out of love. It's a different energy. It's a different way to walk into a room. And when you start noticing that about yourself, when you start doing that for other people, when you're not lost in your own thoughts, but instead you're directly connected to another person's, that's when you start making a difference. That's when you start living your purpose. That's when you start really affecting what it is going on around you. And you can do so much using so little.
Just being present with someone is the gift to give. Is the present to give. Your presence is the present. So stop trying so freaking hard and just be okay with exactly where you're at. Know that this is where you're meant to be at the right time. And if you are feeling like, well, I've been here for too long, then it's time to take action. Take one small baby step towards the direction that you want to go. And remember that you are wearing the red sparkly slippers, Dorothy, and you get to decide.
So whatever path it is that you pick is fine. It doesn't matter that it's the wrong one. You're always going to course correct anyways. What it will matter is how you show up on that path. How you feel, what you're thinking, what you're doing, what you do when other people approach you, what that energy is that we've been talking about. So focus on those things. When you focus on the basics, when you're back to the fundamentals and you're really taking care of yourself and you're really managing the thoughts that you have going on in your head, a lot of the other things just fall into place. We worry about the really, really advanced stuff. Oh, well, how will I do this and how will I do that? Just love yourself. Just love yourself for a moment and love other people. And what you'll notice is that the answers will arise when it's their time to. And in the meantime, get back to you. Get back to the person who will always be there with you.
When you said getting back to the baseline and basics, it triggered what we taught in the Elevated Life Club this month on recovery. It just made me think of, we think it's this magical, crazy secret recipe that's going to make the change. But what we taught in the masterclass inside the club on recovery for mental and physical and emotional is that it really is the simple action and being consistent with that simple action that leads to great transformation.
Yeah, you don't have to do everything. You don't have to worry about everything. You just have to make some of the simple changes and follow again what lights you up. Follow what's really making you happy in the moment. Follow what's good for your body, what's good for your soul.
We hope that if you've been feeling lost, that you found some action step or takeaway and clarity and insight from today's training. And if you did, please tag us, share it on social, let us know, because we want to support you. We want to cheer you on and remind you that you're a freaking badass. Until then, we'll catch you next week.
Peace.
Thanks so much for tuning in to the Elevated Life Podcast. Want more? Join us at theelevatedlifeclub.com for mindset upgrades, lifestyle hacks, and spiritual tools to elevate your soul.
Each month features a new masterclass, meditation, yoga practice, and more to help you transform your life one step at a time.
Come join the 7 or Above Club.